What's up, my dude?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
All
you
right.
just fine.
Cool. All right, what's up? On behalf of Destiny GG Chat, I want you to ask, I guess, like, I want you to start playing League again.
Okay.
Um, all right, so, I'm really interested in, like, your take on language, right? So,
Oh,
like,
shit.
I
Okay.
think you've mentioned it before in the past, how you think that it gets really sketchy down the line as you get one step removed from everything, right? So, like, from physics, you get biology. From biology, you get chemistry. From chemistry, or from chemistry, you get biology, and then you go all the
Sure.
way down the line, right? And then you go to sociology,
Sure.
and then from there, it's already pretty sketch, and then you get into language analysis. Okay,
Okay.
so um, when you talk about language, I don't think I've heard you talk about it much in the past, right? It's really vague. Um, you say, I think the only times I've ever heard you like talk, I guess, about language is when you had like the profanity discussion with Nate's mom way back when you
Yeah,
were trying
well,
to convince her that it was fine. And the MSM, like mainstream media writer or editor, what I don't remember what his profession was, but like you with the editor, you talked about like personal responsibility
hmm
when it came to like your actions on the internet.
yeah. As a
And you
public figure, yeah.
occasionally, yeah. And then you occasionally joke on stream about, like completely like switching to the other side and just saying like fuck no to swearing, right? You say that a couple times.
Well, not fuck no to swearing, but certain insults I use, like autistic or retarded or
Yeah,
downy.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, words with like different social stigmas on them and how they can be interpreted differently. Sure.
hmm
So like I think the biggest thing that I had an issue with, or like that I didn't particularly agree with, was when you said that there was when you talked to Nate's mom, there was no correlation between profanity and intelligence, like the IQ of an individual, right? Um,
Guess. Keep in mind that this talk with that kid's mom was probably
yeah, it's a
5 years
long
ago
time
now.
ago. Yeah,
Wasn't this like a
um,
2012 or 2013? But yeah, go ahead.
sure, but like I wanted to ask you if your stance on that has kind of like changed, whether
More
um,
intelligent people can swear or something.
no, like more intelligent people would not use profanity in comparison to like other words that they could substitute.
I mean, I guess it would really depend on what's going on. Um, or it depends on your audience is the most important thing when it comes to communicating to people, I think. Like if you can only communicate in a certain way, then that is going to be a detriment to you depending upon the audience you're trying to communicate with, right? Like if you're incapable of using any swear words, it's probably going to be a detriment to you communicating to online communities in certain ways because that's kind of how they talk, and it'll make you sound
Yeah.
kind of like an outsider. Much the same way, if you're not capable of communicating to somebody without swearing, you're never going to be able to give any kind of professional talk or anything, because you can only swear. That's the only way you can communicate. So,
Sure, there's a very important like situational kind of like vocabulary adaptation when it comes to things like that.
yeah, sure.
And you're definitely right. But yeah, and you said, well, like my problem with that statement, I guess, is not problem, but like profanity isn't really a good accurate predictor of how intelligent a person could be, right? So like I agree with you in the sense that, like there isn't really a correlation that we can see between people, so like someone swearing and someone like refraining from swearing and someone that, scores well on an IQ test. There's nothing that we can like really see when it comes to like an empirical level.
Well, maybe I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean,
Um,
maybe.
well, I guess like from everything that I've seen, like there's already not enough on this subject, I guess. And it's just like something. This is like an opinion kind of discussion, so like I just wanted to hear your thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably be somebody that swears, but still be somebody that's pretty intelligent. But I mean, that you could probably correlate intelligence to level of swearing. I imagine that most of the most intelligent people probably don't swear as much as people of lesser intelligence. But I mean,
mhm. Yeah, so like there was one paper that I read that said that there in their study that they found a significant correlation between vocabulary and intelligence.
sure.
Not just like how big your vocabulary is or how many words you have at your disposal, but like an individual's kind of like wanting to access uh, levels of like words that are more difficult, right?
Okay.
And are harder to implement into kind of like regular conversations.
Sure.
They find that people that have that drive are generally will score higher on an intelligence kind of like test.
Okay.
The problem that I found with the study was that it was done like in a college, so most of the kids are probably going to be responding that they want to learn more words, right?
Okay.
And this sample size was quite small as well. The questions were pretty bad, and I don't think IQ is a good measurement of intelligence. There's just so many different variables that constitute intelligence. I don't think that was a really good measurement that they could make, right?
Maybe I don't know about that, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, like my biggest problem with that study was like they could have just used better statistics in general. And that kind of comes with like the fact that there's not enough research on the topic anyways.
Sure.
And it's kind of like very hard to dig through and kind of like see the difference between like the psychology behind it and the social aspects that play into it. But I think that on the other hand, I think better vocabulary could be due to many reasons. And like for these claims right now, I'm okay with you kind of like criticizing it or like bringing up like things that you might say to it because it's a hypothesis, right? But yeah, so like I think that from the things that I've read, there's a definite link between like economic position and the standardized intelligence that you have, like your IQ measurement, right? And because of that, my hypothesis is that there's a causal link between vocabulary and intelligence, as opposed to just a correlation, right? And what I base that off of is like the use of vocabulary, like I said before, like requires increased concentration and effort when you talk and increased participation, right? The application of profanity is a lot easier than using difficult vocabulary words, since, you know, profanity is kind of like a catch-all thing that you can just use, right?
Sure.
And my problem with that is like swearing is very, very reactionary when it comes to having a conversation, right? Like you don't when you're trying to have an intelligent conversation, I guess you don't want to be dropping the F-bomb every like 2 seconds.
Depending on what you're talking about, but in general,
sure.
I probably agree. Sure.
Yeah. So like I think when I know this is a long time ago, but like what you stated, I believe in like kind of like an inversion of that, right? So like where you stated profanity and intelligence have no correlation, I think that there is a correlation between vocabulary and intelligence.
Well, yeah, I don't. If I ever stated that, I mean, I would disagree with that. No, I'm not sure if that's exactly what I said. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is, of course. I mean, if you think of the ways that people acquire greater vocabularies, it's usually done through reading or study or other things that would make you much more likely to be intelligent, right? Like,
sure. And a lot of that socioeconomic thing like plays into it as well. Like what kind of pressures do you have on you and what leads you to do certain activities.
sure.
Okay. So I think that was my first claim. I think it's just kind of like stating that I don't particularly agree with your first statement with the Nate thing. I don't think this is going to take too long, by the way. So,
Okay.
And then I think your biggest problem that you had with Nate's mom, right, was that you said you really don't like it when obstacles are removed for children, right? So like you're opposed to dress code. Am I right? Or
At one point in time, I probably was. I'm not sure if I am still opposed to it. I don't know if I feel that way anymore about it.
okay. I guess it doesn't really it's not really applicable, I guess, my argument. But like, do you still believe that removing swearing from like vocabulary is a bad thing for society? Or
I'm not a big fan of doing anything arbitrary. So I mean, like, if I'm going to an interview, I'm not going to be swearing because it's not appropriate for the time and place, and it's probably not going to help me at all in my interview. But I don't agree with necessarily like getting rid of like not swearing just because for no reason. Like I don't think that makes much sense, I guess.
Sure. Would you agree that kind of like the minimizing profanity when possible is beneficial?
Beneficial. What do you mean by beneficial?
When it comes to like, I guess we're generalizing here, but like most social encounters.
I don't think you can generalize them that way. Let me give you an example.
Sure.
Let's say that I'm hanging out at a bar and I'm chatting up a girl and I've never talked to her before, right? In this circumstance, I'm probably not going to be like swearing like fucking crazy or some shit because it wouldn't really make sense to do it in that kind of social situation, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, let's say that I'm inside of a game in a PUBG match and I'm shit talking a guy that I just fucking dumpstered with my fucking tubes, okay, on the roof of a house, right? And I shout something
and then
like
Mr. Mooten comes by and says, "Later, bitch."
Yeah, something like that. Or I'm like, I like shout something like, "Oh my god, like, I totally laid you to waste, you blethering Neanderthal. Like, oh my goodness, like your intelligence is just lacking to such a great degree that you weren't even able to spot me. My acumen at this game is so much greater." Like these kinds of insults like don't really make sense, right? It's a little bit socially retarded to kind of use that, right? Versus like, dude, you just got fucked, dude. You just got fucked, like in an unbelievable amount. Holy shit, I've never seen anyone get fucking dumpstered. So, right? Like that makes more sense. Like, and that vernacular is more appropriate in that scenario. This is why I don't necessarily agree that you can just say that like, oh, like you should never use, bad words or whatever. Because like I think that depending on how things connect, yeah.
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to hear your opinion on that and if it changed. So like, I guess a lot of our conversation so far relies around like how society dictates language, right? So like, and today we can't say words that were commonplace like 10 years ago, right? Like you got banned off Twitch for like a couple days because you said you dropped the N-word or whatever, right? That was a pretty good meme. But yeah, so like I feel like it's really difficult to like kind of like make any claims about language as so far because like there's just so many factors that play into it that even like a lot of people don't agree on. Like you're talking to race realists and ethno-state memers like every other day, right? Like, but in the fact that society dictates language, I think that language has been fairly consistent throughout almost all of human history, right? Like the methods that we use to communicate are like translate between different societies. Not when it comes to like the intricacies of like different languages, but like on a grand sense, right? It's very easy to see or like spot different patterns that arise. And I feel like most of that communication is what we see kind of like the victim, persecutor, and like victim, persecutor, and rescuer kind of like trio thing, right? So we have like somebody that might be victimizing themselves, and then the white knight comes and tries to fucking white knight, right? And then you have the skeptic community or whatever that shit talks all the time. And I think all of that kind of like communication is pretty much detrimental to social progress. How most of the time, like we can't even say anything without being taken out of context, like your stuff with Sargon. And I guess like the purpose of this conversation, like I think I talked to you about having different conversations like off stream, right? I kind of wanted to get you to like read a book and kind of like see what you thought about it because I think it would be a good read. Would you be like interested in reading about something like that?
Maybe, but I get like so many recommendations on like books and shit
Sure.
I'm supposed to read. Like I'm like, it's mostly just comes down to a time thing.
I think it's a pretty short book and it's not very like what do you call it? Prior knowledge heavy. And it's not very research heavy either. I think it's just a pretty good read to kind of just get a sense of how changing your language for a more there's like a beneficial style of language that the author presents. And I think it would be interesting if you read it and then kind of got back to me on it, because I think it pertains to your line of work.
If I have the opportunity to, I will.
Sure.
Yeah, just email me the book or whatever, or the title or whatever, and I'll look into it if I get an opportunity to.
All right, cool. I think that was it. I just wanted to know if like how your stances have changed over like the last 5 years, I guess. That's pretty much it, man.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate the talk.
All right, dude.
Bye.
Bye.